Private Lender Podcast, episode 114.
The Private Lender Podcast quote of the day comes to us anonymously. They said, "The real measure of your wealth is how much you'd be worth if you lost all your money."
This is the Private Lender Podcast, the show that shares practical advice and know-how for new and seasoned lenders, from private mortgages on single-family houses to joint ventures on commercial projects and beyond. Discover details about investment vehicles that you won't find at your local bank or online broker. Listen and learn from private lenders and real estate investors, as well as from professionals and entrepreneurs, as they share the details, strategies, and the insight that allows for successful and prosperous lending. Now, get ready to increase your ROI. Here's your host, Keith Baker.
Hello, Private Lender Nation, and greetings from what used to be the energy capital of the world, Houston, Texas, and welcome to episode 114 of the Private Lender Podcast. I'm your host, Keith Baker, and I'd like to thank you for sharing your time with me today. If you're looking for practical tips and advice on private lending and how to build and maintain wealth without banks or Wall Street, then you are in the right place. And if you want to put the power of banking in your retirement account, you should probably pull up a chair. But if you want to learn from my mistakes so that you can avoid them, save yourself thousands of dollars and heartache in the process, well then sit in that chair and pour yourself a drink, my friend, because this podcast is just for you. Let's start with the 400-pound gorilla in the room. Where have I been? Well, let's just say that while Mother Nature has not been kind to the U.S. this year, she has been kind to my wallet. And it's, as an insurance adjuster, let's just say that there's plenty of business to go around right now. You got to make hay while the sun is shining, so to speak. So I have been pulled away. And of course, y'all listeners know that, as for everyone, 2020 has been a very challenging year. And so in my attempt to navigate these waters, I've had to put some things on the back burner, unfortunately. Or maybe I didn't have to. Maybe I should say I chose to. Anyway, it's time to get back in the saddle. That's all there is to it. Business has been good. And I think it was Denzel Washington had a great quote in an interview. He said, "When you pray for rain, you have to deal with the mud." So that, I've been on the road a bit more. I've seen the kids not so much. And I've been sitting elbow to elbow with strangers on airplanes, all while maintaining proper social distancing as mandated by the airlines. Okay, sarcasm. Anyway, I'm happy to be back home, happy to get behind the mic and back into the episode groove. I feel very rusty right now with all of this, so please bear with me. But if you've listened this long, you've been bearing with me over 100 episodes, so thank you for that. But I'm happy to say that motivation is starting to flow back. Work on Private Lender Academy does continue, albeit much slower than I would prefer. But I'm hoping I can drop a surprise episode in the mix soon to talk a little bit more about that. So just keep listening for more information. Now, on to the housekeeping. Let's start with the Private Lender Podcast has a public Facebook group, and it has been getting some love. So I've been chiming in, and guys on either side of the country have been chiming in and discussing strategies. Private lending, it's a good thing. It's and it's free. That's the best thing is that it's free, and it's a place where we can all get together and share some ideas. You can go to Facebook groups, it's Private Lender Podcast, or you can go to the show notes page, and there'll be a link. I guess I could read the number of the group, but that wouldn't do anybody any good at this point. So Facebook group, go, it's free, great knowledge, and it's just a wonderful extension of the podcast. And okay, did you know that there's an easy button when it comes to starting your journey to becoming a kick-ass private lender? Yep. There is. You can partner with my friends over at Inc. Lending and fund their loans on properties right here in the Houston area, in one of the most lender-friendly states in this great country of ours. That's right. Paul M. Nados and his team will vet the deals, underwrite the loan, and put your money to work for you. It's about as passive as you can get. They'll even service the loan on your behalf, so you won't be rushing around to file 1098s and other tax documents on January 31st at 11 p.m. every year. So if you'd like to learn more about that easy button, just go to privatelenderpodcast.com/Inc, I-N-K. Click on the button, enter your info, and Paul will reach out to confirm a time when he can speak to you about Inc.'s lending criteria, their loan process, and how you can begin profiting from loans located or loans on properties located right here in the Houston area. And okay, well, what's so great about that? Well, Texas foreclosure facts, just real quick. Non-judicial, don't need to hire an attorney. I would, but you don't have to. You don't have to go to court, right? That's non-judicial means there's no court hearing necessary. There's about a 2 to 3 month process to get the foreclosure done, which is pretty quick. There is no redemption period, so once the foreclosure is done, that previous owner cannot claim it back ever, unless they pay money, what's due, and purchase it normally. But anyway, so no redemption period. That's great, and also deficiency judgments are allowed. So this is. I haven't filed one before. I have come close. I've talked to attorneys about doing it, and at the end of the day, just decided that I would be throwing good money after bad. But it is a good bit of leverage on somebody if they don't want to pay you as they agreed to. So definitely a fan, even though I haven't used them. Full disclosure, not yet. But anyhow, so anyway, I'm babbling. But go privatelenderpodcast.com/Inc. INK. So here we go, episode 114. Today marks the first in a series of episodes that I'm basing on lessons found in the book The Richest Man in Babylon, written by George Clason. If you haven't read this book, then as your presumptive power of attorney and podcast host, I suggest you get a copy of it and read it immediately. Purchase it online, go to the bookstore, or go to the library and check it out. But it's a quick read. I was given a copy when I joined a real estate mastermind about 6 or 7 years ago. Stephen Kaufman of episode number 1 in 100 fame led that mastermind, and it was very transformational for me. It literally changed my world. The very way I began to think about money changed, or investing, and things like forgiveness and integrity. I read the book within a day, and so I began immediately to challenge my definitions of things like family, success, achievement, duty, and purpose. And now I have this podcast. I have a mission to teach 1 million of you how to safely lend your money to others. And I have the honor of being on an amazing journey of raising 2, hopefully, happy, healthy, prosperous, fulfilled, and above all, decent and kind young ladies. That didn't come from the book, but the book certainly has helped shape my perspective. So here's the plan. 1 episode a month I'm going to dedicate to one of the 12 lessons found in The Richest Man in Babylon. There's basically two types. You'll find one is the first one we'll talk about today is one of the 7 cures for a lean purse or a small bank account. And then there are the 5 laws of gold as told by the character Arkad, a poor scribe who ultimately becomes the richest man in Babylon. So today I want to begin with the first of those 7 cures. And next month, December, will be the first law of gold. So I'll alternate those over the course of the year. But I want to get something clear before I start. I'm not bringing this topic up just to show some rah or give you some rah. You can do it because you already know that you can do it. But in order for you to gain from the lessons, we must take action towards what we want to gain from those lessons. So please don't just write this down on something and forget about it, or booknote it or bookmark it somewhere. Start thinking of ways you can implement these time-tested strategies in today's world, because methods are many and principles are few. Methods may change, but principles never do. So keep that in mind. And I'd like to go through these lessons, and I hope you gain as much as I have from them. This simple book with simple ideas is very powerful. Okay, so I've given you my dad's speech now, and so what is the first cure for in the book they call it a lean purse, back when people kept coins in a purse on their purse and in their pockets. But I call this the first cure for a lean bank account. And this goes back to something, it's just a reiteration of what we all heard. Pay yourself first. How do you start to fatten and increase your account values? In the book, they say for every 10 coins you put into your purse, only take out 9 for use. So put 10% back and save it. Simple. Before you do anything, before you pay your mortgage, before you pay your rent, pay yourself first. And this is a great lesson. It's very helpful and needed to become, I think, an investor in general, let alone a private lender. I mean, you have to have a sum of money in order to invest it or to be able to lend it out. But this lesson is needed even more to continue on your private lending journey, to learn more and grow as a private lender and an investor. Never stop paying yourself first, and do what you can to increase that percentage from 10 to 15 or 20% over the course of the years. That's the idea. That's the lighthouse I'd like you to start walking towards or going towards. You might say that you can't afford to take 10% out of your paycheck, that there's no money for savings. And this is a response that I would hear often from my dad growing up when the topic of saving up for a family vacation came up. Or, there was never, saving was not an option. You might feel like you're caught in a very similar situation. I mean, I know I certainly have been. Because to that excuse, can't afford to save or don't have the option to save is bullshit. I used to think the same thing before my truck was repossessed. When my wife was 6 months pregnant with our first kid, that was a hell of a wake-up call, a cold shower, and really changed my perspective that it's not an option to save the 10% or to save anything. Just start saving, but it's not an option. Just do it. That first week that after the repossession, I was only able to save about $20, but I did it on a weekly basis, and I slowly added more each week. And this began to boost my confidence in myself and inform the habit of regular saving and paying myself first. I continued to gain momentum and began maxing out my 401k contributions. I mean, mind you, this did not happen overnight. It took years through pay bumps and whatnot. But any time that more money was going to come in from my paycheck, I tried to put more money into the savings of the 401k, and then on some cash savings here on the side or in the closet bank, so to speak. And it's not an easy thing to do and to be able to do, but if you're committed to finding a more elite version of yourself and to doing better or increasing anything, it starts between your ears. And that horribly paralyzing and crappy voice that you hear in your head that only provides you doubt, uncertainty, anger, and shame. It's the same voice that tells you you're an idiot and not worth much at times. So let's take a page from Robert Kiyosaki and determine your first step is to stop saying, I can't save anything, or we can't afford this, or we can't afford to save. There's nothing left over to save. You're looking at money from a place of constantly looking at it from a place of lack and not having enough. You got to stop that stinking thinking and start asking, how can I begin to save something? What changes are within my control that would allow me to save or to increase my savings, right? Maybe I want to put more money into the stock market when volatility is kicking up. Maybe I want to put more in some hard assets, whatever the case may be. What else can you do in order to make and save more money? And there's nothing else you can do. And if you think there's nothing else you can do, then just stop listening right now and find yourself a podcast that's going to be a better fit for you, because this one's certainly not right for you. I mean, not to be a jerk, but let's get expectations set and out of the way. I will give you the one of two quotes. The first quote from the great philosopher and Jedi Master, Yoda, and say, always with you what cannot be done. That's a horrible impersonation, but the words are just as true and powerful. Always with you what cannot be done. And if you come back with, okay, I'll give it a try, I'll give you my second Yoda quote. Do or do not. There is no try. Remember, when it comes to saving, whether you're just starting off or if you've been doing it for a while, it's definitely a case of tortoise versus the hare. Slow and consistent action will win every time. I don't care if you save $10 or $1,000 just to start. But once you've started, don't stop. Continue to increase your contributions. Make it a habit. Spend less money out of your account than what you put into it. And it sounds simple, and I know Keith, why are you spending 15 minutes talking about this? Well, it's important. I think it's a great lesson. It's one that we tend to overlook, and hopefully, I can bring some focus back into this lesson, and remove some stress and anxiety, or help people remove some stress and anxiety when it comes to saving and their wealth. So, now that you've started to get your mind right, let's figure out some areas where you can have some pretty quick saving wins, right? If you have a company 401k or a retirement plan and they have a match, then you're leaving money on the table if you don't put at least whatever they're willing to match you. So I would start there. That's a quick win if you're not doing it. If you are doing already, say at the match, maybe you want to increase that 401k. There's an argument. Well, it's tied up. I'd rather save it in cash outside. It's up to you. It's up to you. But look at your paycheck as anytime it increases, so does the percentage of which you take out for savings. Plain and simple. Just figure it out that way and find a way to do it. Other ways, real quick wins, are just do a rollover from an old savings account or a retirement plan, an old 401k, 403b, whatever you might have, put it into a self-directed IRA and get going, right? And now you've got a good chunk of money, whether, if you want to do the real estate and the note thing, like the private lending, or perhaps you want to put it in the stock market, or maybe a joint venture or a private entity. Who knows? There's all types of things out there that you can do with that. So I would definitely look at, one thing, the retirement plan you currently have, and any old, two would be any old ones. 3 is go Gary V. Sell old clothes, memorabilia, records, VHS tapes, kid stuff. Go to garage sales and hustle, flip. It's not glamorous, it's not sexy, but it's effective. And that can add some paper routes, whatever the case may be, second jobs. I'm not telling you to go get a second job. It's kind of tough right now, but something, I still know people that have multiple employment, multiple gigs because they're on a mission to save or to put their kids through school or whatever the case may be. Now you could also look at cut out unnecessary luxuries like your daily latte, or in my case, scotch, or your weekly spa treatment, or a round of golf. In my case, I guess I could start drinking blended scotch, and that would be a little cheaper. But we spend. I think if you audit your expenditures, you would realize that. And I'm in this boat too. I waste a lot of money on just crap. Some of it's tasty crap. Don't get me wrong, but does that bottle of scotch or does that Venti Cafe Mocha really do me any favors other than simple enjoyment right then and there? No. Is it going to make you rich by not spending that money on a latte or a scotch? Probably not. But the point is not what it is that you give up. It's give up something and take that money and put it elsewhere. Go David, what's his name? David Bach on that, right? Finish rich. You could also try to monetize your hobby. This is, fun. Was it Etsy? Or there's all types of online selling platforms. You could do, Amazon. But I took a class from a CPA once talking about small business and income tax and how to do bookkeeping and blah blah blah. And he had the best story. He was an avid fisherman, and he turned his love of fishing into a business. He began making fishing lures, and then things like his fishing trips became research and development trips and tax deductible. And he actually started selling fishing lures that you can find, at least here in Texas. They're called Chicken Boy. But yeah, that was just his a little side hustle, his hobby that he was able to monetize, and not just take tax deductions, but actually turn it into a business that generated income for him. So, do that. If you could do that with your kids, it's even better, I think. I'm trying to get my kids involved in the podcast and the academy, and they're 10 and 13. They really don't. It's not as fun as TikTok, so I have to compete with that. But if you can do that, get a side hustle going, make some extra money, clean out that garage. You could also start a blog or a podcast. But I would suggest you make it profitable. Don't be like me. If you want to, save some money, I would definitely look to monetize that right out of the gate if you can. And speaking of monetizing, I don't charge money for the show, but there is a cost, and I'd be extremely grateful if you would help me drive awareness to the show and get the word out by leaving me an honest rating and review over at iTunes, Google Podcast, or whatever platform you're using to hear my voice. It doesn't take that long, and it's I believe it's a small price for the value that I do try to provide on a somewhat weekly basis now. So if you're looking to create your own, stable of private lenders, I know people have money but don't realize the power of private lending and alternative investments, please send them a text, an email, a direct message. Introduce them to me or to the podcast. Love to get out there. I'll be a little more active, getting emails out there. The group, the Facebook group, is really helping me with that. Stay more connected quicker with folks. I still waited a week to respond to a guy who was on a webinar. Just crap. It happens. I'm sorry. I'm working on it. I'm trying to be. I'm being better, right? So yeah, go to the Facebook group. Remember, the easy button to private lending in Houston market is found at privatelenderpodcast.com/Inc. That's INK. So that's going to do it, man. We're wrapping up, coming up here on 20 minutes. All right, that's good. I've been babbling long enough. I'm sure there's a ton of ums and ahs and lip smacking and teeth sucking that I'll have to go through and edit out. But As I sign off, I want to say thank you guys for listening, for being there still. I do appreciate it, and I appreciate the feedback as well. And I just like to say that besides, self-awareness, I do wish you safe and prosperous private lending. And I'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Private Lender Podcast with your host, Keith Baker. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit privatelenderpodcast.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review, and we'll catch you next time.
As your attorney, I advise you to take a hit out of the little brown bottle in my shaving kit.